someone in the darkness waits for your arrival. And some call it suicide, some call it survival.
.1 WECS Willimantic, a community service of Eastern Connecticut State University. That was just a lovely, lovely song, Faith Salons by Brenda Kahn with Jeff Buckley. And lucky for you listening right now, we have someone very special to talk with, so let me introduce her. Brenda Kahn is a singer and writer of songs, books, web content, and marketing material. She began performing in New York City, jumped over to London, stayed in Minneapolis for a while, and now is residing in Pennsylvania. Her career began in 1990 when her first album, Goldfish Don't Talk Back, was released to critical acclaim. Her punk-tinged folk music led to a major record deal with Chaos at Columbia Records. In 1992, Kahn released Epiphany in Brooklyn. This album, which featured Kahn's darkly humorous stories of love, confusion, and tragedy in urban America, was heralded by critics and fans throughout the United States. Kahn was selected to open up for Bob Dylan and the Kinks and got to tour the U.S. and Europe. I started playing Brenda Kahn's music around the time that I left the air in the late 1990s before I the great hiatus. I remember second-guessing my decision, thinking, I'm going to miss out on so much awesome music and talented artists. And I was thinking specifically of Brenda and a couple other artists at the time. And so I'm very happy to say that I'm about to welcome you to Miss Brenda Kahn. Miss Brenda Kahn, how are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
Oh, peachy keen. It's great to have you on the show. Like I was just saying, I played your music a lot back in the 90s, and when I was getting ready to leave, I knew that I was going to be missing out on all this new music because I've always played stuff you don't hear on commercial radio.
Right. Yeah.
And it means so much more to me is having undiscovered alternative, and it's so much fresher and more meaningful. Did you get any airplay on commercial radio?
I did some. When I was on Columbia, I think the song "I Don't Sleep, I Drink Coffee Instead" had the most commercial airplay because a lot of people played it on their morning shows.
Oh.
They were like, and here we go. I don't sleep, I drink coffee instead, that kind of thing.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
And you probably were on MTV too, right?
Yeah, I had songs on MTV, and I guess, I had one video that was played on MTV a little bit. I'm trying to remember the name of the show, Road Rules, I think, or something like that. I don't know.
Back when they actually did videos, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, because, back in the day.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s.
Well, you seemed on the verge of breaking out when Chaos Records folded and they didn't let you release your third album, Destination Anywhere. You got to release that later on, though. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Well, it was kind of crazy because they had released a demo for it and then basically set it up in record stores, like to ship to record stores. So record stores all had the codes and everything in their system. So if you went in and said, like, I'm looking for, this record, they'd go, oh, well, yeah, we have it here, but I don't know, we didn't get it. It was, like, really confusing because that's how close to the release date they dropped it. But then Shawnee Records picked it up and released it about a year later. So it did see the light of day.
Good. But
it was definitely one of those industry, moments. You hear so much about.
Oh, yeah. In 92, People magazine article, they compared you with the Violent Femmes and Patti Smith, saying her raw writing is full of smart wordplay and artsy references, and adding, Despite her cleverness, Kahn isn't tricky or gimmicky, just honest and in your face. Cream dubbed you the high priestess of the apocalyptic relationship. I remember thinking that you brought a fresh alternative to the music scene at the time. What were your early influences, both musically and lyrically?
I would say, it was interesting because at the time when I started playing out in clubs and, early recordings, the scene was kind of split. You were either like a folky person or you were a rock and roll person, and those the twain shall never meet. But all my influences were kind of rock people, mostly. I was a Bob Dylan fan, but really my people were Elvis Costello, Violent Femmes. I was into the Violent Femmes. I was into Lou Reed and crazy bands like X-Ray Specs and The Clash and Bowie. It was like that was kind of what I was listening to, Laurie Anderson, this kind of stuff. But because it was a little hard to break into hanging out with guys and playing music back then also, I was sort of stuck playing by myself because, I don't know, I would try to get into bands in suburban New Jersey, and I would get a lot of, I'm going to play guitar. If you want, you could sing. But I wanted to play guitar, So I would just do a lot of stuff on my own, and the acoustic guitar kind of lent itself a little more to the solo project. And so I ended up with this kind of interesting, mix of rock and roll on the acoustic guitar, very percussive kind of sound. And then my lyrics were sort of all bendy and twisty, like Elvis Costello or something like that. And I played in rock clubs. So it was different.
You were playing down in the Village, right?
I was playing in the East Village, yeah. And then even later when I toured, like around 1990, I left New York and moved to Minneapolis for a year. And I did a lot of touring that year. And I didn't really call folk clubs. I called, like all the, the Stashes of the world and the, like all just the rock venues, the CBGBs kind of places. But I would go with my acoustic guitar, my big black trench coat, and show up and just totally like rock it out on the acoustic.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was fun.
You were originally from Connecticut. Whereabouts did you grow up?
Well, I was born in Connecticut, and I lived there till I was about 2.
Oh,
and then
that's early.
That was early.
So no memories of this lovely nutmeg state.
Not really. And then my family moved to New Jersey, and I ended up growing up in New Jersey.
Ah.
So I was 18, and then I moved to the city, to New York, to go to school, and then I just stayed there for years and years.
It's a great place to live.
And now I'm out in the middle of nowhere.
You grew up in an era where our president declared a war on drugs, and common people would simply avoid. And the common thought was that if you could just simply avoid drugs by just saying no. But I don't think you were buying into that rhetoric. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think you're referring to my first album, which was, in college I was a political science major, and just always wanting to express myself through music, that's what was on my mind big time back then, so I was, excuse me, so like learning, everything sort of about, what I like to call the real history of the world, and sort of applying that to my songs. And so the way that like the rhetoric of that time was kind of coming into my world just seemed so kooky and ridiculous in comparison to like, some of the reality of how like these countries worked and how politics worked, and it became, it was pretty clear anyway. I don't think you had to be a super genius to realize just saying no, was going to really stop like drug cartels.
But it looks
I get it. It's a nice sentiment,
right?
But we did
let's be
have a lot of
realistic,
fun
right?
with that. Yeah.
I like it when an artist puts some thought into songs and adds a little kind of political editorial mix in there too.
Yeah, I mean, that first album is, like, it's kind of amazing when I look back at it. It was, you know, like, it's all political, mostly. There's a couple, like, personal songs. And some of it's, like, just full-on rap, you know? It's just, like, I'm, like, rapid-fire words, just kind of, you know, throwing stuff out there. And that was also happening at that time, you know? So there was some of that, like the Beastie Boys and, like, all of that going on. So it's all mixed up in there.
Yeah. Is that the one where you released Eggs on Drugs?
Yeah.
That
has, like, Eggs on Drugs, and This Land Is My Land was, like, a political thing about, you know, New York real estate, basically.
Donald Trump?
Yeah. What else is on there?
I forget.
You know, just a really good sort of commentary on New York City, too. There's the song Third Avenue Al, which is just kind of a portrait of the people. I mean, that New York was so different. It was dark, and there were drugs everywhere, and there were homeless people everywhere.
Yeah.
It was, you know, I remember when they cleared out Tompkins Square Park, you know, with police officers and riots, and, you know, it was intense.
Yeah. You were we played Faith Salons just a little while ago, and you did that song with Jeff Buckley, and you were telling me that you're good friends with him. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, about your friendship?
Yeah, well, I met Jeff at the label. We were both have been signed to Columbia pretty, you know, similar time, and we were kind of like fast friends, you know. Like I met him, and I was just like, all right, we can relate. Like we were just kind of going through the same stuff at the same time, and so we used to hang out a lot at Shanae, or just hang out thrift store shopping and stuff like that. So it's really funny for me, like the way his legacy has just kind of exploded. And I was just talking to someone the other day about it, because it's odd. It's like he sort of belongs to everyone, you know?
Yeah.
And in a way, like, I was like, wait, but, you know, that's my friend. But Faith Salons came about because we were sitting in my apartment. I had this 1,200 square foot loft space with absolutely nothing in it but a bed and a rack of clothes, a humongous desk that I found like on the street or something. I don't even remember how I got it in there. Or maybe it was there when I got there. I don't remember. But it was huge. And then a 4-track set up in the middle of the space, just so like the center of my existence. This is in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and I was messing around with this book. I was always keeping books of poetry and writing, and I was reading through some stuff. And I had this Telecaster. He was like playing some little melody on it, and I was sort of reading off this stuff that I had written. And there was something really magical about it. And he stopped playing, and he looked at me, and he said, 4-track. I was like, 4-track, let's do this. And we just recorded this thing. And it basically wasn't that different from the finished song that you just played.
Yep.
It was pretty much like that. And he just has this, you know, unbelievable way of putting melody together on the instrument, and then his voice, that's him singing in the background and tapping his foot. That little tapping sound is just him tapping his foot.
It's amazing how
What's that?
It's amazing how some people can just kind of pick up an instrument, and you could be listening to two people playing the same instrument, and somehow you can distinguish who's playing at which time. Like, you listen to that song and you know that's Jeff Buckley playing the guitar.
yeah, you can just hear it, right?
Yeah.
I know, he has such an amazing stylistic kind of, signature. His voice and his guitar. And like sometimes he totally nailed it lyrically, and then sometimes he didn't, but it sort of didn't matter because he could sing like the phone book, and you would just be like, holy moly, like that is the most beautiful phone book registry I've ever heard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He'll definitely be missed.
Yeah.
Where do you think his career would have been as a musician if he was still with us? Because he died shortly after releasing Grace, right?
Yeah, he had another album in the works, which they released posthumously, but I don't know how he would have felt about that. He was kind of a perfectionist, and I think he probably would have been horrified. But, I can only assume he would have been like, super famous and really just loved, but who knows, none of us know our path, really.
Yeah. Now, back to your music. Your most recent release was 7 Laws of Gravity. It's a bit mellower than your earlier career, earlier CDs. Have you found a new way to express yourself poetically?
I think, that album, to me, is the most musical album that I've ever released. And I think just really taking a step back, because I stopped playing mostly for, I don't know how long, like 5 years or something like that. I had 2 kids, and I just, I was teaching guitar, I was teaching at a music school for kids, so I was doing a lot of stuff with music, but mostly kids stuff, and, just kind of taking a step back from that kind of chaotic sort of intensity that I think some of my earlier songs were all about. And when I came back to it, I really came back sort of curious about the craft of the song, like how these melodies kind of came together and how, how to produce these songs in a way that just I really loved. And I feel like I accomplished that on this album. Craig Dreyer's the producer, and he has a beautiful ear, and he played a lot of the piano parts. And it's just, really talented musicians that I got to play with. And, I don't think it's so different from my, other albums. Just, to me, it feels more fleshed out, like more thought out. Where in the past I kind of was like, hey, you, with the upright bass, do you want to play on my album? It was like, a lot of that went on in my early career, where it was just like, I loved being in the synchronicity of life in that way, and just seeing things happen. And when I saw Oren Bloedow play in New York, I just went up to him after his gig and said, like, hey, I'm making this album for Columbia Records. Do you want to be on it? Like, it was just, I'd hear something and be like, yes, that's it. Well, this one was just more crafted, more time. It was made over a much longer period of time because I had to travel to upstate New York from Pennsylvania on weekends throughout the time that it was made. So, but I think I've been kind of exploring a lot of different ways of using words. I've been writing a lot of poetry, actually.
Cool.
I'm working on a book of poems about being a mom called For the Love of Pete.
Oh, that sounds cool.
It'd
be good for a lot of mothers to read, I bet.
Yeah, I hope so. I printed a poem out if you wanted to hear it.
Yeah, please.
I thought that would be cool, because that's kind of more what I'm doing right now.
Good.
I can read it now if you want.
Absolutely, go right ahead.
Okay. Well, this one's not as much about the kind of mom-kid stuff as some of the poems are. This is more about kind of finding yourself in all the chaos. It's called The Movie of My Life.
Oh.
In the movie of my life, my shoulders are always down, my back is always straight. In the movie of my life, I can chop vegetables really fast. I'm never late and I'm never sorry because I always do the right thing. In the movie of my life, I'm not famous, I'm just well-loved. My words never falter, my friends are always at my side. In the movie of my life, you are my champion and my muse, and you never have to remind me that every moment is a building block to the arc of our time here. In the movie of my life, fear and love, hurt and confidence are equal partners. I practice peace, I practice patience. In the movie of my life, I am a bodhisattva. My playground is nirvana, my teacher is suffering. In the movie of my life, I am inexplicably drawn to good fortune, good timing, and good people. In my movie, the sunsets are vivid. The stars blanket the sky. On warm summer evenings, my kids slam screen doors. Our dog eats the cornbread when no one is looking. In the movie of my life.
That is beautiful. That is very
Thank
beautiful.
you.
I feel like I'm attending a poetry slam.
You can snap.
There we go. I love going to poetry slams. They're always fun. I usually go to the ones with the youth, teenagers going up and doing poetry.
I haven't been to one in ages since I was living in New York. Would love to do that.
Yeah. Well, if you're ever in Connecticut,
is there a good one?
Yeah, in Manchester, there's a Young at Art is a kind of a non-profit organization, and the kids come by and get to do all sorts of art and practice their stuff, and they do a monthly poetry slam. They do a monthly music slam kind of deal. It's wonderful.
That sounds cool.
All right, you've traveled all over the place. This is the number one question I have to ask everybody, and I think I'm going to put a book together too someday with all the responses to this one question. When you're on the road and traveling to a distant place, is there any local restaurant or spot eatery that comes to mind that you always felt like you had to get to if you're touring in that area?
Oh my God. You know, I could have prepared for that.
What's a good comfort food for you?
Yeah, comfort food. So I'm a super clean eater. I'm not like a road food kind of girl.
Yep.
So, and the last 4 or 5 years, I've been eating gluten-free. I know that's really trendy and obnoxious, but it works for me.
Good.
And but I've kind of always been that way. So the band would be stopping at McDonald's, and I'd be like, I'm good. I'll just wait. So for me, I thinking back of all my road travels, I would always try to track down that Whole Foods or whatever it was in whatever town, and then make my own little whatever miso soup or whatever.
Yeah.
But I live on Thai food, and I'm trying to think of a place though. I know what you're talking about. You want that place. I guess in New York it would sort of be Mogador Cafe. Have you ever been there?
No.
They have great brunch and stuff like that, and I don't know. Terrible. I know. I should have.
You'll have to email me when you think.
Okay, I will think of there's places I'm thinking of, and I can't remember their names.
Yeah,
I remember having buckwheat pancakes at this place in Madison, Wisconsin, that were amazing, and I would go there in a second, but I don't actually remember the name of it. So I'm gonna have to think back and figure it out for you.
Yeah, I don't travel too much, but once in a while I'll go out, and I always seem to find something that's really amazing. I was in Iowa once and found this amazing restaurant called the Flying Mango, and had this amazing paella. Oh,
Isn't
so
that
delicious.
awesome?
Yeah. It's something you always
Gabe's
remember.
Oasis there.
What'd you do there?
Gabe's Oasis
Oh.
in Iowa City. That's where I used to do gigs.
Oh, cool.
It just comes right back to me. And they had an awesome health food store there, and I don't remember the name of that either.
I think I stopped in Iowa City and I found this nice little trendy like block of shops and artsy places, and they had a spice store, and I brought home a bunch of spices and they were so fresh and so delicious. That's things
that sounds amazing.
I remember things like that too. Anything food related, I remember. That's about it. But,
yeah, for me, it's like music.
Yes. And I can remember like a song will, tell me a song and I'll say, oh, I remember the first time I heard that at such and such.
Yeah, right. I'm good that way too. And I remember faces, but names, not so much.
Yep.
I'll be like, oh my God, hi, how are you? You. I think it's partly from touring, like just having met so many people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know.
It's been amazing to talk with you, and I hope we can do it again maybe sometime. I'm going to play now one of my favorite songs from you, I Don't Sleep, I Drink Coffee Instead. Are you still drinking coffee? Or did you cut it out?
I had a really long hiatus, and now I am like not only drinking coffee, but bulletproof coffee.
Ooh.
And bulletproof lattes. That's pretty much what I drink every day. So I don't know if you know what that is, but basically it sounds weird, but you put kind of a chunk of butter in your coffee and then put it in a blender, and it's super amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Do you melt the butter or?
Crazy. Well, it melts because it's going into the hot coffee.
Oh, right. Okay, yep.
But if you look it up, it's like a whole thing, bulletproof. It's like a high-fat. My husband is an acupuncturist and kind of likes to experiment all new trends on himself and his family. So we pretty much are doing some weird diet every 3 months. But this one's lasted for quite a while.
Cool. I'm going to try that.
Check it out, yeah.
Definitely. Brenda Kahn, thanks very much for talking with us today, and talking with me today. There's nobody else here, but thanks for calling in.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And stay on the line for us, okay?
Okay.
And check in when you release that book of poems.
Absolutely.
All right. Brenda Kahn right here on this show. And now, for you and your listening enjoyment, here we are. I don't sleep. I drink coffee instead.
There's a white trash chick at the donut shop. Reads her horoscope, calls her old man Pop. Runs a red light, flips off the cop. His name is Bob and lives down the block. I don't sleep.
Hi, this is Brenda Kahn. I'm still drinking coffee, and you are listening to Something Different with Mark E. Ramone.